Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get a hell yeah!
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Party on Broad. Eagles season is nearly 1 week away. The Eagles' 53-man roster has just been revealed. Today, we're going to kind of look at that. We're going to grade it and what it means for the Eagles' 2021 season. Joining me today, I've got Rob, the voice of the people. What's up, Rob?
Listen, I know that this is an Eagles show, and we're going to talk all Eagles, but I need to just get this out there. Ben Simmons, it's your fault, not ours, not Doc's, not anybody else's. It's your damn fault, and I can't believe I wasted so many breaths defending your ass. You're dead to me. Okay, guys, how are you? Great to see you.
All right. Also joining us, he is the host of Chalk Talk, all NFL, all Eagles podcast. Don't make sure you check that out. Follow my man on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. What's up, Shane?
Not much, man. And, I'm not a big NBA guy at all, but I saw the comments that Ben Simmons made as well. And has there ever been in like a 6-month period, 2 athletes just fall out of favor so quickly as Simmons and Wentz, like organizations that catered to them, that built around them, and then they just totally walked away? It's pathetic.
It is brutal, man. It is just absolutely brutal. Let's get rolling here. What are we doing today? We are tiering this Eagles roster. As you see here on the screen, we've got the tight ends, the offensive line, linebackers, and so forth. And we're going to start from the top down. So S is the highest you could grade these positions. It is superb. And then we'll go to A, then to B, then to C. So what you're looking at now is not the final rankings. We didn't start yet. If you're watching us live, please be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, but also comment and give your thoughts on how you would grade these Eagles positions. So we're going to lead off, man. Are there any groups in this on this team that you think should be considered an S tier? Rob and Shane, I'll floor is yours.
You go first, Rob.
I mean, if there's any group that I'd be willing to give an S tier to, it would probably be the offensive line from a standpoint of when healthy, you have the right side of the line in Lane Johnson and Brooks, who have been a force. Now, when we say when healthy, we haven't seen that in a while. So that unfortunately plays a role. But as it stands right now, between them and Kelsey, and obviously, I am so high on Jordan Mailata right now on that left tackle position. Now, listen, the left guard position, I really wish Landon Dickerson was ready. I'd love to see him get a chance there. Could you imagine the girth and the size on the left side of the line when you talk about Mailata and Landon Dickerson together there? But even with that said, this is the best position group on the Eagles. And I think if they can stay healthy, this team could probably surprise a few people because it all starts in the offensive trenches for this team.
I had them as an A. For me personally, I can't ignore the injuries. I cannot ignore the injuries. But I agree, Rob. Like, if the veterans stay healthy, if some of these guys avoid declines, this has potential to be, one of the best offensive lines in the league right now. But I give them an A, but definite potential for an S come January. What about you, Shane? Are you good with an S rating?
Yeah, so for the purposes of this exercise, I kind of disregarded injury because, injury, it strikes at any time. You never know. So I kind of looked at it through the lens of what is the talent that's here? Not to disregard, Brandon Brooks is coming off a major injury. We got to factor that in. But is he going to get hurt again? Who knows? You never know. And so just looking at the talent that they have, the potential that they have, the O-line I put in the S tier. I think if healthy, this offensive line is a top 2, top 3 unit in the league. And I think that, that's good enough for me to slide them into an S tier.
And I love Rob's comment about Landon Dickerson. What did Jordan Mailata show you last year? One of the best in run blocking. And I love that. And what is Landon Dickerson? He was a mauler in that run game. So having like that left side, and then on the right side with Brooks and then with Lane Johnson, that I love the idea, the concept of giving Jalen Hurts all the success he could possibly have with a heavy dose of a great running game. So love that idea. Let's roll on. Is there any other S tiers on this list, guys?
Not on mine.
Not on mine.
No, nobody wants to go defensive line. I'm going to throw this out here. You can counter it. You can counter it. I'm going to throw this up here. Defensive line. Here it is. All right, there you go.
Yeah, look, they're close. They're close, but I want to hear your reasoning for putting them in the S first, Stives.
Yeah, sure. So, like, you look at kind of what you saw last year. Their pressure rate without blitzing, 40%, was among the best in the NFL. You look at how Hargrave and Josh Sweat are really going to be kind of, I think, for me personally, an upgrade over what you had last year. Hargrave looks like a man on a mission. You look at Josh Sweat, breakout candidate, could be one of the first defensive ends in a long time for the Eagles to get over 10 sacks. I love the rotation guys here. Milton Williams, I think, is just going to be that joker that plays all across the line and creates havoc in the backfield, getting to the quarterback. And plus, we haven't even seen Jonathan Gannon's defense. So unlike Jim Schwartz, I think we're going to see a ton of stunts. I think we're going to see a ton of movement and keeping opposing offenses kind of on their backs a little bit more this year. So I'm happy to see Jim Schwartz gone. There is definitely an unknown factor, unknown variable when it comes to Jonathan Gannon. But I think this potential, I mean, they were third in sack percentage last year or something, top 5 at least across the NFL. I think this group has actually more potential. Go ahead, Rob.
I think that there is potential that by week 5, we can say that this is an S defensive line. My issue right now is there's far too many unknowns. Like, listen, you know what Brandon Graham is, but he's getting older. You know what Fletcher Cox is, but he's getting older. After that, we don't know the one defensive ends. I know Josh Sweat is the breakout candidate, and damn it, I would love to see it. I love this kid, but it's an unknown. Derek Barnett, unknown. Milton Williams, unknown. They've gone young, and I'm okay with that, but I don't know if I can, with all of these unknowns, put them in an S yet. Now, there is a strong potential. A month into the season, I could say, yeah, they're an S. But I would put them in an A just from the fact that we got some unknowns, and then you got some age along that line with Fletcher, with Brandon. Ryan Kerrigan's a nice rotational piece, but he is getting up there in age as well. Didn't really see him at all in the preseason because of the thumb injury. So that is why I deduct them a little bit. But I don't think that they're less than A. And let's face it, boys. In this season, if we're saying our offensive line and defensive line are two of our better tiers, that's a great starting point for this retool of this roster.
What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I had them slotted into that A tier as well. I think the difference between the offensive and the defensive line for me is the depth at the position. We know who Brandon Graham is, like Rob said. We know who Fletcher Cox is. But you start to get behind them and you start to have questions about the depth. How good is Derek Barnett? Is Josh Sweat going to break out? Is Milton Williams going to, come in and make an immediate impact? Is Javon Hargrave going to stay healthy? I mean, if all those things happen, you could definitely make the argument for S tier. I just felt like in terms of offensive lines, I feel like we've got a top 2 or 3 in the league. Defensive line, I feel like it's like a top 5 type of thing. And so I slotted them in as an A.
All right. A it is. I'm assuming nobody else has any S tiers with these positions of the Eagles going once, going
Correct.
twice. All right. Let's roll down to the A tier with the defensive line. Does anybody have any A tiers for the Eagles in this group? Anybody?
Yeah. I have another one that I'm willing to put there. And that would be the tight end core. And listen, 2 months ago, a month ago, none of us saw Zach Ertz on this roster. And I know what Zach Ertz was last year, and I understand that there is some ill feelings. But if you watch the 15-minute press conference he gave the other day, he seems rejuvenated. He seems reborn. he was very outward with giving out, like he didn't hold anything back. He told us he was all messed up last year mentally. He told us apologies have been made. And that only bodes well because now you have Zach Ertz in a contract year, Dallas Goedert in a contract year, two big tight ends who can catch the underneath stuff. What is the best weapon for a new quarterback in this league? Oh, a tight end. Well, now Jalen Hurts has two. They've been working extra time together. This position excites me. The other part of this is the young guys in it. Now, I know the one Tyree is on the IR for the year, but, you know, he was impressive before he got hurt. But just the fact that Ertz and Goddard are here and they both seem mentally engaged, and with Jalen Hurts being a new quarterback, I'm willing to put them in an A tier because of that.
What about you, Shane?
Yeah, that's actually, I had tight end slotted in as A tier as well. I mean, I've held the opinion for a long time that Dallas Goedert is a more talented player than Zach Ertz. I hope he gets the opportunity to be tight end one this year. But you can't discount what Zach Ertz has done over his career for the Eagles. And I mean, last year was a bad year. I don't think that makes him a bad player. I don't think it means he's going to have that type of year this year. He was injured last year. The quarterback was terrible last year. There was a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And so I think that's the best 1-2 tight end combo in the league. I wouldn't say either of those guys on their own is necessarily a top 5 tight end, but I would say they're both probably top 10 tight ends, and that gives you a really solid unit.
Yeah, I agree. A tier. You know that I do think Dallas Goedert is, you know, shoulders above Zach Ertz at this time. You know, Dallas Goedert can beat you downfield. He can definitely give you a lot in terms of run blocking. So I like this, you know, position for the Eagles, especially considering we have seen Jalen Hurts working with the tight ends all training camp, all preseason. I think you're going to see a ton of targets to Zach Ertz and to Dallas Goedert. I do agree, though, Shane. Like, Dallas Goedert deserves his moment to shine here this season. Like that, he should be getting the majority of those targets. But that intermediate area of the field was an area where Jalen Hurts really, really struggled with in that small sample size that we saw last year. So that is definitely one to watch. Anybody else have any other A tiers before we move on? Good? Once?
Yeah.
Boys, let's go to B tier. Does anybody have a position for the B tier?
I threw running back in the B tier.
Okay.
I'm glad that none of you put running back in the A tier because I didn't want to have the big Miles Sanders debate. You know, I'm not a Miles Sanders hater, but I realize what Miles Sanders is as a player, and it's not a top back in the league. I mean, I tweeted out a while back last year, he rushed 164 times for 867 yards, which is 5.3 yards per carry. But if you remove his 3 longest runs, that takes away like 38% of his yardage and drops him to 3.9 yards per carry. He's an explosive player who has no consistency down to down, and he struggled with drops. And I know we're excited about Kenny Gainwell. He was my favorite pick in the draft, but he's a 5th-round rookie. And so I think the potential is there for this running back group. I think they get a boost from Nick Sirianni and the way that he utilizes a stable of running backs. But I don't think you can put him higher than a B tier. And I mean, I think you can make an argument for a C tier, but they're the most B tier group for me personally.
What about you, Rob?
I would put them in the C tier, but I do agree with what Jane said that they are the only group left that you can argue for a B tier. And here's the reason I put them in the C tier. It's very simple. It's a young, you know, they're young, and I don't see one back that on a 3rd and 8 I trust picking up a blitzer. And that to me can be an issue. Like Miles Sanders was not trusted to be on the field on 3rd and longs last year. You know, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott love what they bring to a game, but they're smaller backs. I hope that they had kept 4 running backs on the roster. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you see a Jordan Howard on the practice squad become an active roster guy as a 4th back. If they would have kept him as a 4th back, that would have solidified the B for me. I understand what they're doing here because they're giving it to different positions and giving more guys at different positions. But because of that, there's just no – I'm not sure where the leadership is going to come in that room either because Miles Sanders is not there yet. Maybe he gets there. But I'm with Shane. I'm a little iffy, wishy-washy on Miles Sanders. So that's why I would put him to C. But they are the only group remaining that you could give an argument to a B. I agree.
And on the Jordan Howard point, I talked about this a little bit on the last episode of Chalk Talk. I would be pretty shocked if he's not on the 53-man roster in week 2. But he has to stay on the practice squad through week 1. They can put him on the active roster for week 2, and then they don't have to guarantee his salary for the year. So I'm kind of viewing that group with him as a part of it because he's on the practice squad now, and it makes no sense to have him there as a developmental piece. Like, they're going to get him back on this 53.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to just piggyback off what Rob said. I do have this group at a C. I know, like we all just said, Miles Sanders has a lot to prove this year. You had the injuries, you had the 8 drops, you had inconsistent play. That cannot be ignored. But what also can't be ignored is that he did have a really good amount of yards per carry, like 7th in the NFL. You're right, Shane. Like a couple of those were major chunks from some big plays, no doubt about it. But a play calling comes into that as well with Dougie P gone. I think Jalen Hurts starting at quarterback from the jump is going to do a lot for Miles Sanders in this offense. And can we talk just for 1 second about the fact that you're looking at week 1 where an offensive line, you had Nate Herbig starting at right guard. You had, what was it, Jack Driscoll starting at right tackle week 1. It was just an offensive line from the jump was in shambles. And now you got a healthy offensive line blocking for these running backs. And like I said, in order to set up Jalen Hurts for success, you need to have a healthy running attack. And I think, Kenny Gainwell, I think we're going to see more and more of as the season progresses. Boston Scott is going to be that Nyheim Hines dude for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see. I'm very interested to see how this Nick Sirianni offense translates. Any other Bs? No more Bs? We all agree we're all out on Bs? All right.
So we're dropping running back down to C?
Yeah, I'm going to drop running back down to C. Let's go to C. Anybody have a C?
Yeah, I've got a couple on C.
I think I have most. Yeah, I was going to say I think I have a lot of the roster on the C tier. Go ahead, Shane. Start us off.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll just name one of mine. So I put cornerbacks on C tier. Darius Slay, he's not the player he used to be. I think the Eagles have 2 good CB2s in Darius Slay and Steven Nelson. I don't think they have a true, CB1, but a lot of teams don't. Avonte Maddox, he's just been abused on the outside, and that's what happens when you have a guy with dinosaur arms playing outside. He should never be there. I think he's going to be a fine slot corner. You've got McPherson, the rookie. He's your number 1 outside backup, which isn't ideal. I think he's more of a slot player, but 2 solid cornerbacks and a guy that should have been in the slot a couple years ago that I think can take a leap there. I would say that's a C tier-ish average unit, which feels really good to say about our cornerback room for a change.
What about you, Rob?
I agree. It's not the worst. Yeah, it's not the worst. And I think your top 2 guys are why it's at the C. We need some consistency on the inside. I hope it comes. McPherson's a rookie. I know they just claimed and signed a guy off of the Colts practice squad. I don't know much about him, but I do know Jonathan Gannon does. So I got to assume that Jonathan Gannon likes something that he sees in this guy. But it's an average group. Look, I'm glad we got 2 starting outside corners that I feel like I can trust to a certain extent. We haven't said it in a long time. They did exactly what I wanted to do, going out and getting Steven Nelson on a 1-year deal. That was perfect. Now we'll have to see what these other guys do, but I don't love the depth there, and that's why I think it's C is very fair for the corners.
Oh, Rob, Dives, you're muted.
I was teetering between the C and D range for the cornerbacks. I need to see how it translates to the regular season. I'm excited. I would probably be that D plus, C minus for this position group. I'm excited. However, the truth of the matter is Darius Slay, really struggled last year, and we'll see how that translates. So we'll leave it at C for now. Anybody else have any other C's?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
I would. I tell you what, I'm going to put the quarterback room in the C group. I think, and my reason behind that is we know that this is a make or break year for Jalen Hurts. Okay, we understand that. But from there, you have Joe Flacco, who is what Joe Flacco is now, but he's a veteran leader. But Gardner Minshew is an upgrade over Nick Mullins. Okay, if you didn't see that in the preseason, you weren't watching. I think what you do is you have a nice QB room where I don't see a quarterback controversy, which is huge. Something I think we needed in this town. I know people want to try and make it like Gardner Minshew had something to do with Jalen Hurts. No, the Gardner Minshew had to do with they didn't like Nick Mullins, and they're not sure what Joe Flacco has left. So why don't you get a guy who can run around a little bit, can make plays, has this, go get him personality, and put him in that room, make guys work harder. So it's an average group. And what's a C? A C is an average grade. Depending on Jalen Hurts' play, can it raise? Sure, but that's asking a lot right now. So I'm good with keeping them in the C range.
Any thoughts on that, Shane?
Yeah, C is actually where I had them plugged in as well. Jalen Hurts, we just simply don't know. His rushing ability gives him a high floor. He's going to allow, if you get the banged up offensive line, he's going to be able to extend some plays where a less mobile guy wouldn't. If your receivers can't get open, he's going to be able to make some plays where other guys might not. Now, is he going to leave some plays on the field with a little bit of scattershot accuracy or missing some reads? Yeah. And you hope to see him take a step there. Bringing in Gardner Minshew, I love that move. I can't say how much I love that move. There's 26 teams in the NFL that should have made that move, and the Eagles are the ones that did. And Joe Flacco, he's awful, but between Minshew and Hurts, I think, and obviously this one can fluctuate a lot depending on how Jalen Hurts plays. But right now, that's about where I felt comfortable plugging him in.
Man, just call me the optimist. Like, we're getting close. We're 1 week away from the regular season. I actually had this at a B for me personally, but I wanted to kind of see where you guys were putting Hurts here on this tier list. Like you said, guys, I'm excited to see how Nick Sirianni utilizes Hurts in the RPOs and, some 21 personnel and, some misdirection plays and getting Rieger and Devontae in a lot of pre-snap movement, getting those guys the ball in space, getting them downfield, something we haven't seen in an Eagles offense in quite some time. So I had this probably in that C plus B minus range for me personally. For sake of time, let's keep it out of C. Anybody else have any C's on this list?
I just want to make a comment. You had to put Rager's name before Devontae, didn't you? You couldn't say Devontae then Rager. It's very disappointing.
You're me so well.
There. You know what I did in my first fantasy draft? I drafted Justin Jefferson over Jalen Reagor because that's what you do.
I mean, that was a smart decision. So,
yeah.
Anybody else have any C's before we move on to D? We are good. Let's move on to D. Who has a D for Eagles positions here? Does anybody have a D?
I put the wide receivers in D tier.
Yeah,
okay.
So
I do too.
Talk about it.
I honestly thought I was going to have to argue with you guys to put them lower than you were going to put them. I know the Devonta Smith hype is real, and I mean I'm excited about him. I want to see him in the games. Quez Watkins, he has made some strides, but again, I need to see it in a game. But at the end of the day, I think there's an exciting trio there with Reagor, Watkins, and Devonta Smith. But at the end of the day, the Eagles' leading receiver last year was a guy named Travis Fulgham, a guy who was cut, a guy who all 31 other NFL teams also decided not to keep, and now he's on the Eagles practice squad. So when your best receiver from a year ago isn't good enough to make any roster in the NFL, it's going to be harder to get you higher than a D on this.
Yeah, I also had the wide receivers out of D for me personally. You got JJ on there. He's only got 26 career targets in 2 years. Jalen Reagor, my boy, he's got a lot to prove this year. There's no question about it. Devontae is Devontae. He's absolutely terrific. But you look at that depth, that definitely is a major concern. Like one injury to Devontae, knock on wood, like we're suddenly back to where we were last year. Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham and all that mess. What about you, Rob? How would you grade the wide receivers?
Well, if there was one position group that screamed Howie Roseman had a say, it to me was the wide receiver position group. Why? Well, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is still on the roster. There's nothing for me to say anymore. All right, if he's going to do anything, I don't think it's going to be here. And the only reason he's here is because he was a second-round pick, and Howie don't want to admit. He did the same thing with guys like Jaquan Jarrett. He did the same thing with guys like Nate Allen. They were second-round picks that he just hung on to until he couldn't anymore. To me, I understand that nobody else wanted Travis Fulgham. I would have rather seen Fulgham on this roster than J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. That's my opinion. Now, with that said, Sirianni's a wide receiver guy. Maybe I'll be eating crow in a month, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside will be a nice player. I don't know that, though. Outside of Devontae Smith, who I just think is an absolute gamer, a lot of question marks. Does Jalen Reagor take the second step? I'll be honest with you. My biggest concern with Jalen Reagor is athleticism. It's between the ears. He seems to be a bit of a head case. The guy is consistently retweeting people who tweet some bet like, dude, you got to let it go. Just go out there and play the game that you love to play. Quez Watkins, love what I see. But as Shane said, got to see it in the game. And look, we all like Greg Ward. He's not going to be the guy that makes this group higher than a D. So I think that's a fair grade for them.
All right. Anybody else have any Ds between the linebackers and safety positions? Anybody? We're good. Rolling on to D. Rolling on to E now. Anybody have an E for the linebackers or safety position?
Listen, where I go to school, there is no E, so we're just going F.
All right. F. They're already there. Let's talk about the linebacker position. F. I mean, they still have a lot to prove. However, I think a little bit of a surprise in training camp. The linebackers, Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards, Davion Taylor in that short amount of time when he was playing was opening some eyes. I liked what I saw in preseason, especially between Singleton and TJ Edwards, blowing up screens, playing fundamental, playing disciplined. But the truth of the matter is, do it during the regular season, like we said about Jalen Reagor. That's the only thing about the linebacker position. Shane, lead us off. What's your thoughts on linebackers for the Eagles this year?
I mean, it can't be worse than last year. Nate Gary's gone, so I'm excited about that. But I know people are excited about Alex Singleton. I think Alex Singleton is a tackle machine. I think people like him so much because he looked fantastic compared to Nate Gary. He looks like he belongs on an NFL football field, but in reality, I mean, he's not a guy you really want starting for you. He's going to be okay. TJ Edwards, UDFA, he's good in run defense. The linebacker core just doesn't do much for me. They really need Davion Taylor on the field and to take a step. They invested a day 2 pick into him 2 years ago, last year. So this will be his second year. Last year, he played like 3 defensive snaps. That's just unacceptable. You hope that Eric Wilson comes in and makes an impact. I don't think they're going to just look like they don't belong on an NFL football field, but I think by far it's one of the weakest points on the team and one of the weaker units in the league.
Yeah.
All right. Any thoughts on the linebacker position, Rob?
Yeah, just that. Listen, your best linebacker is a guy from Minnesota that we don't know much about, and Eric Wilson. And I know that our linebackers coach knows him. I think that there may be a connection to Gannon. I can't remember. But, Alex Singleton he's the typical Alex Singleton is the TJ McConnell of the Philadelphia Eagles. He belongs out there, maybe not as a starter, but he makes tackles. He's energetic. And people just love that. He's a Philly type of player. But that doesn't mean that this core needs to be higher. TJ Edwards, we don't know yet. Davion Taylor, we don't know yet. I'm not saying they're an F because they don't belong on a football field. I'm saying they're an F because they're just not that good right now. Now, maybe they step up, but right now, I don't think it's fair to give them any higher than an F. They got to prove it.
Especially in coverage. I mean, you're talking about like what were the passer ratings when targeting linebackers against the Eagles last year? It was well over 110 or something along those lines. It was
think of the backs in this league. Think of the backs in this division. You know, they're going to get use out of the backfield. Got to be able to cover those guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And especially coming up with one against Atlanta Falcons when you're going up against Kyle Pitts. They're going to get thrown to the fire from the jump. And then we're wrapping up here with the safety position. We all agree it's an F. What's your thoughts, Shane?
So safety, you bring in Anthony Harris, another guy from Minnesota. He wasn't great last year. He's fine. I think he's probably going to give you a level of play similar to what Jalen Mills did, which wasn't bad. It's fine. You've got Rodney McLeod coming off yet another major injury. You've got Kevon Wallace in his second year dealing with nagging soft tissue injuries. I don't know if that reminds you of a guy named Sidney Jones or not, but I want Wallace to take that step to get some third safety reps. I was really high on him when they picked him, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy and to get onto the field. And so I'm a little concerned about the depth here too, that between the fact that you've got Wallace with the hamstring issues and you've got McLeod coming off of that injury. I didn't think he was going to be ready week one. I'm wondering now if he will, because they only carried 4 safeties. And so if neither of those guys can go, you don't even have a third safety. But I think it can be a fine unit. Rodney McLeod is like the absolute lowest level of athleticism that you can have to play safety now with his injuries. And I'm hoping he's able to get back to where he was pre-injury, because otherwise, he could become a liability there. It is helpful that Gannon prefers split field safety looks. And so that's going to make lives easier for those safeties. They don't have to cover as much ground from center field. So I do think that it's going to make things a little easier on the safeties than it would be in the Jim Short scheme.
What about you, Rob? Any thoughts on safety as an F?
Yeah, I think that the Rodney McLeod injury and the nagging injuries of Kevon Wallace are why we're here. You would hope by now that Kevon Wallace would have taken a step and you would have felt better about Rodney McLeod coming back off injury. But because of injuries itself, he hasn't. So you have Anthony Harris, who didn't have a good year last year, but has had good years in the past. And then you have McLeod off a torn ACL and getting older, and nagging soft tissue injuries for Kevon Wallace. So because of the McLeod and Wallace injury situation, that you can't give them higher than enough right now, because right now you have one safety out of these 4 that they kept that you could say is a bona fide player in the NFL. The rest of them, we don't know right now because of the injury situation. So it's, could you call it incomplete? Sure. But for the sake of this drill, we'll call it an F.
We have Benjamin saying, "You boys are on crack." Marky Mark says, "What's up, guys? I'm glad Hassan Ridgeway is back, and 2 spots on the roster seems thin at cornerback. I see them getting somebody. I'm definitely worried about the depth at cornerback for sure."
They only have one now because –
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, they only have one because they did just bring a guy in, and I'm pretty sure they signed him to the active roster. I don't think he was a practice squad guy, and I never heard of him, but it sounds like he's going to be on the active roster to be a 5th corner. But I agree, yes, not good.
So what are your final thoughts? You're looking at this visually. You start, in the trenches, the offensive line, the defensive line. That is the foundation of a very good football team. I like that we have the tight ends there, providing Jalen Hurts that safety blanket there. I'm looking at that wide receiver position as a D. I do think there is potential that could move up to a C or B pretty quickly if Nick Sirianni gets these guys the ball in space with their speed. Shane, any thoughts on where we are this season and what you're looking at visually?
Yeah, I still think, like I said all along, this is a high variance team. Like, wide receivers, could they be really good? Well, yeah, Devonta Smith comes in and does what people think he's capable of, and Jalen Reagor takes a step. You've got a really good 1-2 punch at wide receiver. If Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the future, well, that's no longer a C tier. The biggest thing to me is like the positions that we know for a fact nothing will change, they're going to be a problem, are linebacker and safety. And we knew that going into free agency, and we didn't really do much to fix it. We knew it going into the draft, and we drafted 5 linemen, and we didn't really address it. And so, to me, it's just a frustration with the roster building philosophy that we have. I firmly believe we should be building through the trenches, but I don't think you can just continue to neglect linebacker and safety the way that we have and expect it to work out fine. And so I do think that Jonathan Gannon's going to be able to scheme some things up that's going to mitigate some of that weakness on the back end of the defense. And I'm really just excited to see what these coordinators bring. We're looking at a new offensive play caller, new defensive play caller, new schemes. What are they going to scheme up? And we didn't see that in the regular season. It's all vanilla. And so I'm excited to get into it and see what we're really going to have this year.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, look, I think this is a team that when you look, you love to see that the trenches are at the top. I think the wide receivers, the running backs, the QB could all move up. Proof. You got to prove it out on the field. But I agree with Shane totally. Yes, you build through the trenches, but no, you can't just ignore linebackers and safeties. When Brian Dawkins left, they ignored safety till Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins is left, and they just seem to be ignoring it. And listen, love Landon Dickerson. Think the guy will be great. An opportunity to draft a safety in the second round there, and there were a couple names that would have been perfect, that would have really jaunted that safety position. You chose not to do it. Your linebacker situation, you chose not to address it. That is an issue. You hope something comes from these guys that are on the roster now, but I think you're really leaving yourself thin in these two positions, and that's tough. And that, to me, isn't Nick Sirianni. It's not the coordinators. That's the roster construction of Howie Roseman. Hopefully it works out for him, because that means it'll be a much more fun season than what a lot of people are expecting.
All right, so that is our show. Let's wrap it up. Shane, where can we find you, man? What do you got going on?
You can follow me on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. Check out the podcast that I host, Chalk Talk, with Mark from the Tough Cover Pod. We've been doing an episode a week, but we're about to ramp up to 2 episodes a week. We're going to be hitting you with review shows early in the week, preview shows late in the week. So follow all my stuff on there. And if you wouldn't mind, give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It would really help us get the word out.
Rob, you're up, man.
Hi, man. Yeah, I have been very Twitter-less in my life lately, but the season's picking back up, which means I'll be back. So at Billy_Man is on Twitter. You can catch me here with Dives. We'll be doing a lot of partying on Bros now. The season's going. Eagles post-game shows, all the fun stuff that comes with an Eagles season, which means me yelling about how much I hate certain members of the team and certain members of the front office and all that fun stuff. So make sure you're tuning in.
Yeah, I'm all footballed up, man. I've got Ohio State and Minnesota going on down right now. I'm already getting ready for that Eagles 2022 NFL draft. So gotta love that, man. Fly Eagles fly, baby. Follow Shane on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. He is Rob at Philly_Madness. I am Dives, Mr. Crockpot. Thank you everybody for watching. And lastly, just want to quickly plug, yes, we'll be doing post-game shows of Eagles games every single week. It's going to be a ton of fun. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button if you love the Philadelphia Eagles, and always be sure to subscribe. Stay awesome, everybody.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just goes to right. Russell Westbrook